Could someone just readjust that light up there? One straight up. You don't have to do it now. I just wondered if somebody moved it. I've never noticed it shining exactly in my eyes. Not complaining. Just change it later. So I can work with it. Today's Dharma talk is titled Deep Love, Shallow Love, or Shallow Love, Deep Love, just talking about love. It's something I get asked occasionally because it's confusing. It's confusing even though it's a concept, a word that is all over the place. Everybody using this. We've been using it since we were very young. And it seems to be tied up with passion or desire or wanting something. So that's kind of the shallow part of it. The passion doesn't particularly go away. It just changes its reference. We all know someone who is, maybe it's ourselves, who is very self-centered and can't quite step out of their me feeling all the time. Me and my stuff, my ideas, my family, my things, my me. We all know people who have a sense of maturity, you could call it that, a sense of maturity about how they work with their feelings. They have feelings like you do, like everyone does, but they don't, if they don't get what they want, you don't particularly hear a lot of complaints about it. And if you do, you might hear it once, and it's just a description. So did you get such and such? Did you get that job? No, I didn't get that. I didn't get it. I applied, but I didn't get that. No excuses or no entanglement happening. Even though you might know more about it, you might realize there's more to that. They have a right to be upset with so-and-so for the way they were treated. But you don't hear anyone going there because they're, what else can I say? They're an adult. Love that is grasping or craving or lusting after something else that it wants. This is a shallow form. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not here to condemn that. What am I here to do? Encourage you to be aware of things rather than judge them, evaluate them, jump to conclusions, or in any way manipulate your mind or anyone else's mind or life. Mind your own business, simply put. I've given talks with that title. Mind your own business. Take care of your own situation first. Understand what's happening with you. If you get clear, so you're clear. I'm not saying you don't have negative feelings coming and going, but you don't jump to conclusions about it. You don't just automatically assume, oh my gosh, I'm having this, why is this happening to me? And yak. We have these circular stories about every emotion we have. I sometimes say to my close students, I don't give a damn how you feel. This doesn't mean I don't care deeply for their welfare or for their situation. I'm just not buying into their emotional dynamic the way they do. People tend to have emotions about things and think, oh, this must mean. Okay, something arises, there's the emotion, this must mean, then they immediately go to a blame. Maybe they go back this way, here I go again, I can't seem to help this, I have this terrible problem with creating problems for myself. And what do I say about that? I'm about to say it. Don't do anything with it. Don't do anything unless you have to. If it's already there, that's all you need. Whatever emotion comes up, you might automatically name it jealousy because they're getting what you should have gotten. Do nothing with it. Don't accept it, don't reject it, don't look away. Don't accept it by chattering with yourself about why you've got this coming, why that happened. Please don't do that. Don't accept it. Don't reject it. Don't argue with it or say this shouldn't be this way. I got to stop feeling like this. What have I done to deserve this? You know all of the things. I'm not telling you anything new about that. The dynamic of consciousness that most people don't understand, don't see, don't realize is that consciousness, awareness, is just like space. It's just like a sky. The metaphor that we usually use in this tradition is the sky. Your thoughts, ideas, emotions, concepts, the things that you like, that you don't like, that come towards you, that go away from you, your own life and death are like clouds, impermanent. They come and they go. They're like weather. And you can live in that cloud where you're subject to passion, aggression, ignorance, warfare with yourself, warfare with others, conflict, turmoil, depression, anxiety. I could say you name it, but you probably already have. So what is happening in this tradition, at least the way it's being taught in this building here, is you, if you're listening to me, if you come in this room, you're giving me permission to tell you stuff. Other than that, do whatever you need to do. Trust yourself. But since you're here, I'm saying, strengthen your awareness. You don't have to become a Buddhist. You don't have to, there's nothing to worship here. Buddhism is a non-theistic spiritual path. It may look like we're all bowing to this figure, but that bowing may be there, but it is not about bowing to someone else. There is no Buddha separate from you. You are the Buddha. I know that. You don't know that. So again, a shallow love is about wanting things to be different than they are, which is the second noble truth of the Buddha. The four noble truths are life is suffering or discontent, and the second noble truth is it's caused by desire, wanting things to be different than they are. Here's the way things are. We don't want that. We want something else. The sage, the enlightened person, the Buddha, is not concerned about the changes that are coming and going in terms of his or her personal reference. I'm not saying they don't see them. I'm losing, I'm gaining, but they do nothing extra with it. They notice that, but it's a description. It is not some kind of congratulation. It is not a merit badge. This Buddha Dharma is being taught without credentials. Buddha Dharma, awakened truth. Buddha, awakened, Dharma, truth, without credentials, with no PhD, nothing. If you start to get something like that, red flags should go up, because it is probably not the true Dharma. So working with emotions that come up where there's some kind of desire, grasping, wanting things to be different, what do I say about that? Here's what I say. I say, just observe that. Don't try to stop. Don't try to take what is happening and make it into something else. This is the nature of confusion or samsara. This is the nature of living beings who go to war and go to peace, and go to war and go to peace, go to love and go to hate, go to love and go to hate. Circular. It is possible to transcend that. When I say transcend, I'm not saying leave. It is possible to transcend, to see the fundamental substrate or basis of everything, which is the absolute, which is the nature of Buddha Dharma. Not separate, not separate, not separate. So you can use the image of two children in a toy box, or in a sandbox, pulling on a truck. Mine, no, it's mine. I had it first, I touched it. I gave it a name, you didn't. Did you ever name anything? No. Well, it's mine. I mean, these kind of conversations we have, you can all remember having those. Maybe you're having them, this morning with someone. I don't know, possible. I certainly did, didn't I? What did we argue about? So there's that level of it, and then it goes, it looks like stages. It goes right up to the stage where it has been in the Buddhist tradition sometimes called the love a mother has for her children, or a father for his children. That it gets as close as you can get to unconditional. If it's your daughter, your son, I mean, you might correct them, you might want them to do well, but your feeling for them is so deep that you're pretty much going to give them a pass and nobody else will. It's that kind. It's not exactly that, because it goes further than that. It actually extends to everyone. It extends so far that it extends to people who have not been born. It extends to people and beings who have long ago passed on. It's been called universal love, but it's not a feeling. I'll repeat that. It's not a feeling. I'm not saying there couldn't be feelings with it, but what it is a deep, deep understanding of the nature of things. Why am I looking around? I'm looking to see how much eye contact I have. I have it from everybody but one or two people. Other people are looking away. Find out why you're looking away from this old man who's talking. So we have a shallow, not wrong, not saying, no, this is the bad kind of love. No, this is part of being a human being. We're not trying to get rid of anything. You don't need to get rid of the grasping or the craving. You just have to see it. If you see it, it will find its own equilibrium, because it's not separate from anything else. That kind of love isn't separate from the highest kind of, what's the fancy word, agape. The Sanskrit word is karuna, or compassion, or the desire that was about your own, wants or cravings, has somehow graduated into desiring the welfare for everyone. The Bodhisattva path, Bodhisattva is considered the closest thing we have to a saint in the Buddhist tradition, and it is that Bodhi, awakened Sattva being, is an awakening being, a being who is, their whole idea about life is to awaken themselves and awaken others to what? To the truth, that nothing is separate from anything else. It's not even a religion anymore. It starts out as a religion. We need some kind of structure. We need a building. We have a monastery. We need people who have devoted their lives to this, monks, lay practitioners, people who just come and participate and study and practice together to try to understand what is this ancient teaching that goes back 2,500 years that no one is promoting. Have you noticed no one's promoting that? I have to say something. So of course there's a little promotion going on, but if you say, I'm not interested, I'll say, see you, take care of yourself. And how do I understand that? I understand that if I know how hard this is to do this kind of a discipline. It is extremely difficult, frustrating to do this, and there's very little relative reward. I know how hard it is, so if you say, Sokuzan, thanks for your help, I'm not very good at meditating, I think I'm going to go back into whatever, something else. It could be anything, wouldn't matter. I'm going to go get more help from my therapist. What would I say? Well, do that then. Trust yourself, do whatever you need to do. Not about trying to convince you of anything. So the deep, deep love that is possible has less and less and less feeling attached to it. I'm not saying it couldn't be incredibly emotional. It could be, but it is not particularly a feeling about something else. It's not a feeling about someone else. It's a misunderstanding. Even people practicing Buddhism that have been practicing for 30 years have a misunderstanding about that. I'm not here to correct them. When I say it's a misunderstanding, as I'm saying, it's not separate, so it can't be something else. The fundamental understanding is only this. It says this in this manner, as it is. Asitis. You need to get asitis. And don't get rid of it once you get it. kind of like arthritis, when it doesn't hurt. But yeah, I guess it does hurt for someone. It can hurt. But then again, like I said, I don't care how you feel. And what am I saying? I think you get an idea what I'm saying. I care, but you are already caring enough about how you feel. You're already feeling like crap. You're already feeling sad. You're already feeling like, what am I going to do? I've been trying it. This isn't working. I've tried this and tried this and I've tried this. What can I do? It's not that I don't resonate with you and care about you, but I know that the only way I'm going to be able to help you, if I even have permission to do so, which is not all that common, is to encourage you to awaken, encourage you to see who you are fundamentally. There is no solid self here. There is no solid selves or selves out there. It is not two. The ultimate teaching is not separate. And it is a realization. It is not an experience. You may have an experience. There's an experience. Comes and it goes. Want another one? There's another experience. And that's going too. WTF. This is one of the most important parts of the Buddha's teaching. Impermanence. You can't find anything that's permanent. Can you? Look, everything that you see, even something that's very strong, like a cement wall, it's going down. It might take 1,000 years, but it's going down. Everything that is living, that comes into existence, is going to disappear. So this is why there are spiritual paths, is because somebody here and there, down through history, has discovered there's something beyond or about or deeper than just this physical life of taking away from what you want from somebody who's weaker, or fighting with somebody, like all the craziness that's going on in the world. I would say, some people say we need them. Some people want to go and carry signs and march and do all that. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I'm saying don't take your unexamined aggression into that world. First, if you don't have peace here, you're just going to take it out into the world and then fight with it out there. Don't do it. Now find out who this is. And you'll see that who this is not separate from anyone anywhere. Once you realize this, compassion or karuna or agape arises spontaneously, and it arises without a self, and you don't even have to generate it. Consciousness doesn't belong to anyone. Love doesn't belong to anyone. Love is just an open dimension of being without a self. So there may be some feelings there, there may not. You don't mind. Anybody have a grandmother? I rest my case. Questions about that would be good. Anything that has been said? Yeah. Jason.
Is there a way to have some sort of softness towards ourselves without kind of reifying the self-centeredness?
I think in the Yogacara tradition, therefore, the self-centeredness shows up in 4 different ways. Actually, shows up in innumerable ways. But there's self-delusion, delusion of self, and there's self-referral. Is anything that happens is always about you. And sometimes it's very subtle, because you can meet someone who's doesn't seem particularly self-centered or egotistical, but anytime you say anything to them, they have something that's better. And they'll say it in the nicest way. They'll say, "Oh, my son is going to Nepal to study musicology over there." And before you can even finish your sentence, the person's saying, "My son went to Nepal," or "I know someone who's in Nepal right now." It's not wrong. It gives the excuse of a conversation, but you can sense that feeling that they're not really. They just listen to what you said long enough to trigger their own self-centeredness. Again, not wrong. This is not something to be corrected. Don't correct anyone who does that. Be aware of it. But basically, any correcting that you want to do, find the nearest trash can and put it in there. Don't correct anything. Stop it. You're here. You're giving me permission. Who's going to tell you this? Don't correct yourself. Don't correct anybody, anything, anymore. Stop it. Or give it a year where you don't correct anyone. But what should you do? Be aware of what comes and what goes, what's going up and what's going down, of what picks up a knife and aims it at you, and what hands you a flower, to use the extreme romantic kind of images. I'm just saying, be aware of what's coming and going in your life, and the people that are coming and going in your own mind. Watch what comes and goes in your mind. Don't upset, don't accept, don't reject, don't look away. And in this way, train your mind so that the awareness gets more and more, it gets stronger. So the other two types of delusion in this, the seventh consciousness of the Yogacara tradition that's talked about is pride of self, or being proud of who you are, what you've accomplished. So a lot of puffiness going on there about you. But it also could go the other way, where suddenly things go to pieces and you can't really find anybody to blame, so then you have the opposite end of that, which is pretty depressing, or can be. So those kinds of things need to be observed, and rather than corrected, they need to be looked at. And that's very difficult, because when something difficult is happening, something painful or something obstructive is happening, we want to go in and push on it. We want to go in and make excuses for it. We want to shut off. We want to look. We want to, have a beer. Go for a walk. Not that going for a walk or doing yoga is wrong. It's just that anytime you do anything, look at your motivation. Look at your intention. You could ask yourself, what am I avoiding here? Am I avoiding something? And if you are avoiding something, and cut it right there. No extra what you should do about it. Just the awareness of the avoidance is enough. That will hold you so that you can continue to see what arises. Because as soon as you start doing something about it, it's like suddenly you've got a recipe in front of you. And now you're reading a recipe, and now you don't see what else is happening. So it's just a very subtle way of self-centeredness or ego, or trying to fix something. You can't fix ego, it's unreal. I didn't address your question very directly, so please ask it again.
When we start looking at our negativity, it's easy to begin to condemn ourselves or regret. Yes. And I'm wondering if there's a way where we can have a little bit of softness towards ourselves without justifying or saying a story about why it was okay.
So all you have to do is be aware of the story of saying it's okay. So it's always about awareness. It's never about doing something so something else won't happen. It's never about doing something so something else will happen. It's about awareness. If you see the truth, you don't have to try to be compassionate. If you see the truth of no separation, you can't help but have strong, supportive feelings, ideas, thoughts about others. When we see someone else is screwing up in some way, if you have some clarity about who this is, then your attitude of taking care of yourself, being kind to yourself, seeing that you're not going to be able to change yourself into a person who never has a temper tantrum. It might not show up out here in public anymore, but there's still this rage that comes up every now and then. Don't correct that. Someone else may be telling you how to fix things, how to going through therapy. Then if you trust that, don't listen to me. Trust yourself. Do whatever you need to do. But you're in here, so now I'm telling you, do nothing with it. And so it's the same thing in that situation. Simple word, just witness it. Just witness your mind. Who you actually are is not a living being. Consciousness is just manifesting in a living being for a short period of time. 70 years, 80 years, I don't know, 22 years. Well, you're older than that, so you'll be around for a little while longer. Maybe. You eat well. Don't drink too much. And don't think too much. In other words, a little bit, but jumping to conclusions, what happens, we start to go into something and then because we so much want an answer for things, we lock down on things rather than keeping it open, let things come and go. Have a willingness. This is another suggestion. I just thought of my Enneagram. I'm not supposed to be a 2 who's always giving advice to people. Enneagram. It's my other suggestion. What was it? I'm also old. So. I don't know what it was. You have a question?
From Shane out in Santa Ana, California.
Yeah, Shane.
He asks, is it helpful to tell people you're working with that you're proud of them?
I would say as a protocol, as I always do that, but you could consider that if somebody's working with someone and they're, I've said that to people before, not very often, but once in a while, you could. Meet things where they're at. There may be times if you've met yourself where you're at, you know who you are, you don't have any more doubts about who you are. You're no longer trying to repair something that is completely nebulous. You're no longer getting your idea about who you are from others. You know. It looks like self-centeredness, but no, it's seeing what is fundamentally true. Who you actually are. You're not separate. In our tradition, you would say you're not separate from the Buddha. In someone else's tradition, you might say you're not separate from God, or you're not separate from Allah. Or in the indigenous tradition, there will be other ways of talking about it. It's just a way of working with reality that has an idea or a motivation to actually transcend the warfare that which is a horrific situation where people are being, if you read history, which I've been doing lately, it's just horrible, just the things that have happened in the last century. Not just only in Syria today, but just, oh my gosh, it's hard to believe all the terrible things that Stalin did and Hitler and Mussolini. Difficult to look at that and realize there are people that were that confused and that grasping that they were willing to actually create situations where people suffered. Further questions about this?
Is there a relationship between the shallow love you were talking about and the deep love?
Yeah, they're not separate.
Is there a way to use the love we understand now to transition or to begin to understand more deeply deeper love?
Yeah. In our tradition, the only process to use is we're studying Buddhism, so we're using that ancient teaching from 2,500 years ago, where the Buddha, the enlightened one, awoke, and what did he awaken to? Dependent origination. He saw that there wasn't anything separate from anything else anywhere. So he, as the Buddha, who awoke as the Buddha, saw everywhere he looked, he saw the Buddha. He didn't see separate beings. It's like a mother seeing her family. She doesn't really see separate beings. They're her. They're extensions of her. She's going to take care of them. And that's what happens to one who awakens. But you don't awaken outside of your karma. You don't necessarily. Now I don't have any depression. Now I don't have my temper is no longer there. I'm no longer irritated by this, that, those things are all included. You don't get rid of anything. Did I answer your question? Sort of?
Sort of.
Yeah. Ask another one. I'll sort of answer that one.
When we're experiencing that relative love of passion or of grasping, or is there a way to acknowledge something more?
So that very thing, that grasping, might be a little bit of a stretch, but that very thing of grasping, that has to be loved also. So you can't get rid of anything. That very, because the way if you include that in your own life, then you can really help others, because you're not talking to people out of some kind of condescension. Well, I'm awake, I'm enlightened now, so I'm above all the anger and all of that difficulty. No, you have to actually make friends with your on a very deep level with your negativity if you're going to work with the negativity of the world. Otherwise, you go to war with it. If someone comes and threatens you, and you haven't looked at your own negativity will rise out of the darkness and come right up, and you'll pick up a weapon of some kind, either a word or a baseball bat. And you'll justify it with all kinds of chatter. What am I going to do? He's threatening me. He's calling me names. He's doing this or that. So that has to be included also, but it can't be included unless it's examined. So don't try. I'm not saying you can't derail some negativity or soften it or dilute it. You can, but you can't dilute it or demystify it unless it's examined. Because if you just get a flash of the negativity when it's being negative, when it's coming up, it's too late. You haven't spent any time looking into that when it's at rest. When it's at rest, when you're at rest, that's when you can see your negativity, and that's when you can bring awareness into that, and you can begin to soften that up. And it's not a direct softening where you're doing something, it's just that the word I sometimes often use is include. When something arises, you could say included. There's a little bit of grasping going on there, a little bit of a credential you're getting there, but it seems to work okay because it's done over a long period of time. Shoka.
What does aggression look like at rest?
Just a way of talking about it. Just you feel aggression, but you don't do anything. You don't do anything outside, you don't do anything inside, you just notice it. And you give it no name. You don't even know what it is. You start to name it, then you've already left the aggression and opted for some kind of description that helps you feel less aggressive. You have to be compassionate with this. You have to love this. That's not a self-love. You're not loving an ego. There isn't anyone here. But you are not separate from anybody else. This is where you start. Start with this. And that's the only way you can really extend or expand. The extension and expansion isn't even the case because you're already not separate from everybody else. It's just that we live in a little, my teacher Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche called it a cocoon, the cocoon of ego, of separation. You don't have to bust out of that. If you see that it's a cocoon, it will dissolve. No guarantee.
A question from Jim Service up in Traverse City.
Mr. Service.
On the 4 kinds of self-centeredness, you said self-delusion, self-referral.
Self-pride.
And then, I don't think you got the last one.
But you know what the last one is?
Self-love.
Self-love.
Huh?
Self-love.
Yeah, self-love. I think I remember that one, what we're talking about. That's why I need help. Yes.
Another question from Shane.
And just to comment on that, before we go to Shane's question, that self-love means that you're just really, it's not like an active thing that you're doing, but you're just really stuck on yourself. You can't actually get away from that self-centeredness. It may or may not show up to others in your personality. Your personality style may be outwardly very, considerate of others and wanting to be helpful. Someone's sick next door, you've offered to go and get groceries for them or something. So it's not saying you wouldn't do that, but when if you look at it, you'll see the person who is doing that. This is just a comment, and you can use this and point a lot of different directions and understand a lot of different things. There is a very subtle feeling of wanting to be the kind of person that helps. This is called self-love. It's very subtle. And we're not saying it's wrong, of course. There are people doing that all the time that want to be helpful. But this is an ego form and it's not wrong, and it probably is helpful. I'm sure it is. People are doing that all over the place all the time. There are a lot of people. But still, if that situation is threatened, then all of the unexamined anger and bullshit that is under the surface starts coming out and just wipes that love out of the way, because that love was initially was self-centered. So now you've got all this unexamined anger coming out, going to war. We see it, I don't even have to mention politics. It's just the craziness is just, insanity is just rampant all over the place, with apparently sane people and obviously crazy people. Yes?
Shane asks, what does it mean to awaken outside of your karma?
Who said that? Did I say that? So it's a way of talking about seeing that it's a way of transcending the karma. Well, if you transcend something, you don't really leave it. Your understanding goes way beyond the relative truth. Relative truth, this is relative truth. That's relative truth. Should I say, well, I wonder what that means? I fell on the floor. That must mean some. No, it just means I'm clumsy. So to awaken beyond or outside just means that you don't get rid of anything. It's like a bigger sky. It's like the clouds are not as important. What is important is the sky. Clouds come and go. Sky doesn't do anything. Sky is just sky. What you're doing basically, to put it very simply, you're changing your allegiance as an ego-centered being, me, and not my stuff, from the clouds over to the sky. The sky doesn't get credit for being generous, but the sky doesn't care what comes or goes. The sky is always a sky. No matter how bad the weather, it never leaves one mark on the sky, unless it's a jet trail, of course. Technology. Skywriting. One more question? We have time? Yeah, sure. You have another question? Yes, Lisa.
Is that sky the deep love?
Yeah, it is. It's just another image. We need to talk somehow. It's like that. And if that starts to happen with you through your practice, others may notice it, but you won't notice any difference necessarily. You won't necessarily get a credential like, oh, I'm this wonderful person everybody thinks is so loving. It won't happen. Others might see that, but what are they doing? They're projecting on you. They're projecting that on you, which they probably need to do if they're going to be understand or learn from you. They're going to have to do some of that. But the sky just sees more sky. The sky just sees clouds come and go. No one is separate from that sky, and someone who has understood that sees there isn't anything but the Buddha everywhere. Nothing but there isn't any. There are no separate beings. There are individual organisms that come up that bring consciousness into this situation, the sixth sense fields and their objects that are functioning all the time. But they're without a self. Much smoother operation, much more cooperation. A really high level of intelligence that is not like operating like lemmings or ants or something like that. I'm talking about an incredible individuality, because you don't become suddenly turned into 15 slices of white bread. You actually become unique. Your karma actually is actualized, because it functions so much better without a self. It would function so much better. The paintings of Picasso, the work of Mozart, everything would have been much smoother. Maybe the work would have been better, maybe not. But their personal issues or their self-centeredness got in the way and made things more bumpy. Time to close? Very good, thank you so much. You can mention something about daily Dharma gathering.
So we'll stand and offer our meditation of merit. And we once again would like to mention that this Saturday, June 24th, is our all-day, the last Saturday of the month. So please attend if you can do it. We also have donation boxes in the hallway, so if you value these teachings, please help support the work that we do here. And those who would like to stay for the daily Dharma gathering in 10 minutes are welcome.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Jiho san shi ichi hu shi so ten directions, the three worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna Paramita. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokukoji Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with light.